how are you being right now? Are you clenching your jaw? Are your shoulders up tight? Are you breathing? Right? These little moments to check in with ourselves, because I think we get in the habit of sometimes it's easy to bookend little like wellness things at the beginning and end of our day. It's not always easy to do, but those are the places we kind of logically think to add them in. But the middle of the day is a great place to just check in and just see, like, how am I operating? Am I like really like working anxiously? Am I, like I said, are you clenching your jaw, and just like noticing how you're carrying yourself and how you're doing things? That can be really telling, because it can be a reflection of how you're doing a lot throughout the day,
Yeah.
and a little bit of encouragement to check in more often, just to like force ourselves to be mindful and aware, so that we can take little measures that help us relax and release some of what we're carrying.
Hello, hello, and welcome back to Journey of a Fearless Female. I am your host, Paola Rosser, and this week my guest is Danielle Zies, your go-to gal for all things nutrition and vitality. As a certified holistic nutritionist, she's just not about what you eat, but how it makes you feel. With a passion for adrenal and hormone support, Danielle is on a mission to banish fatigue and help you unlock amazing energy, one delicious bite at a time. As a co-founder of the Happy Hormone Club, Danielle has built a global support network for the burnt out and overwhelmed, helping them thrive through life's ups and downs, whether it's battling fatigue or navigating hormonal shifts as we enter premenopause and beyond. Her online hub is a sanctuary for thousands, providing tools and guidance to reclaim energy and joy. But that's not all. Danielle is a creative force behind Simply Nourished with Danielle, where she shares her wisdom and tasty recipes with her world. Her Eat for Energy Cookbook isn't just about collection of recipes. It's a roadmap to reclaiming vitality, featuring hundreds of dishes and meal plans tailored to boost your energy levels. Join Danielle on her mission to simplify nourishment and make feeling great a way of life. Whether you're tired, overwhelmed, or just ready to embrace a healthier lifestyle, Danielle's here to guide you on your journey to a total well-being and feeling good, the new normal. Everybody, please welcome Danielle. I'm so happy you're here. We've been struggling to try to get our timelines in sync so that we can be here for you guys. So thank you so much for listening on Apple Podcasts and watching here on YouTube. I'm so excited to have this conversation as I am 44 and entering premenopausal, energy is starting to go low. And I just recently heard on a TikTok about how different it is hormonally and how the medical industry looks at us differently, especially if you're a person of color. They think, oh, well, Black and Mexican Americans, like when their teenage girls are starting to get a certain age, they're like, well, they're supposed to go into hormonal change, but it's not really it. They're having adrenal stuff going on because of the food that we're consuming and all the different things that are going on with our meats in the farms. So there's a lot of topics that we can cover today, but let's talk about your journey. How did this all begin for you?
Yeah, well, thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here on the podcast.
I'm
And I
happy
guess
you're
it
here.
started out, oh, thank you. And so I guess it started out for me with, in my like mid to late 20s, just totally crashing out my hormones. So going from this kind of like busybody, like young adolescent, just out of university, I was like living downtown Toronto, working the corporate life, and just burning the candle from both ends.
Mhm.
I've always been interested in nutrition. And at the time, I was on a vegetarian diet. And now looking back, I can see in hindsight that even though like my diet was really, really clean, it wasn't a diet I was thriving on. So
Mhm.
that wasn't like, fully supporting me. And then here I was like doing long distance runs, all these things that I thought were healthy at the time. Like when we think like 20 years ago now, like
Yeah.
these things that we thought were healthy, like work out more, like basically hard work pays off
Mhm.
type of vibe, which I was embodying in every area of my life. And so essentially just totally crashed out my hormones. I actually didn't have my period for a full year.
Wow.
And like on paper, like that's like menopause, but it wasn't
Yeah.
true menopause. Of course, I was like in my 20s, but it was a hormonal situation because my body was just like didn't have the reserves
Mhm.
to worry about that, right? So it really was a lesson for me coming back and building my body back up. And because I always had this itch and curiosity about natural and alternative health, I started I just started researching. And the more I researched, the more and the more changes I made in my life, and even just simple changes, I noticed huge shifts in the way I felt. So diet was a really big one for me. I had a lot of gut issues at the time, and just making a couple little tweaks in my diet, radically changed my gut health. And that was it for me. I left my day job. I went to nutrition school. And while I was in nutrition school, the theme of stress just was never not there.
Mm-hmm.
When I was every different disease or different issue that was coming up for people, managing your stress was always one of the root level things that you need to work on,
Yeah.
among other things, but stress is always there in the background. And then while I was in nutrition school, I started working in a really popular supplement and health like a compounding natural pharmacy here in Toronto as well. And I got to learn a lot about the different supplements and talk to hundreds of thousands of people over the years, and so many people working on their stress, taking the very best supplements, coming in month after month, buying all the best stuff. It was just proof to me that you can be taking all this great stuff, but if you're not working on all of the things,
Yeah.
it doesn't make much of a difference. So
Yeah.
it really was about my journey, building back my hormone stamina, getting my period back, balancing things out. And just for me, there was a lot of putting the puzzle pieces together. So now I'm on a mission at Simply Nourished and in the Happy Hormone Club to just make it so much easier for people to do the same.
Yeah. It was like you're deconstructing everything that you were taught to believe about
Yeah.
about dieting, the culture, and I used to run all the time too because I thought, that was a way to get rid of the anxiety when my father passed away, but I also was like, oh, I could burn more calories if I run, but I ruined my knees, and it
Yeah.
sucks because and here's another thing, every person is built differently. I had a friend who was really, really tall, really, really lanky. She had long strides and she could not train for a marathon and wake up the day of the marathon and outrun us all. But here I am running 8, 9 miles a day to try to keep up with her. But because I'm of a shorter status and I have wider legs and stuff, my knees were getting hurt very bad. And so there's so many different factors to what is going on with your body, but it's your responsibility to figure out what works well for your body and what doesn't work well for your body, and to actually be your own advocate. Because like I said earlier in the podcast, there was a mom on TikTok who said that she is an adopted Black daughter. And she said that when her daughter was showing signs of puberty, she's like, it's too early. She's only 9 years old. And so she took her to the doctors, and the doctor said, oh, well, people of color are supposed to go through puberty earlier. Now, if your daughter was Caucasian, then we would ask for additional screens. And so she had to fight for her daughter to get the additional screens, regardless of the color of her skin. And it turns out that she was having adrenal fatigue at such a young age. And so there's all these factors that we have to look into. I have personally gone down my own rabbit hole of trying to figure out why I wasn't losing weight at a certain time. I'm like, wait a minute, because I've always been the type of person that loses weight. And I'm like, I'm working out, I'm running, I'm doing all the things, and I'm so exhausted. And I had gone to the doctors, and it's like, oh, you need to lose weight. I am trying to lose weight. Do you not know that this is what I'm trying to do? And it wasn't until I asked for a different doctor and she did some screening that my thyroid was off. I wasn't going through perimenopause, but my thyroid was off and I just needed thyroid medication. It's these different things that you have to look into. And now I'm doing I'm doing this as the goddess tea because it's got all the different herbs and stuff to try to regulate my hormones. It's I wish we could have these open conversations without the only solution is you need to lose more weight.
Yeah. I live for these conversations. Yeah, and you're so right. What works for one doesn't work for another. I mentioned that I didn't thrive on a vegetarian diet. Some do. Some thrive on vegan. I'm
Yeah.
just a girl who just doesn't do great with a lot of grains and legumes.
Mm. And
So I learned that lesson the hard way.
how did you figure out what was good for your body? If it was somebody who was down the rabbit hole and is trying to figure out what's good for them, what would you recommend for them to do?
So sometimes it's kind of obvious, as a professional nutritionist, when I'm chatting with people, sometimes I can see some red flags that are popping up when we're going through the daily intakes and such. For me, And maybe it was because I was restricting so much. Like I was almost a vegan. I wasn't having a lot of dairy back in the day. And every night I was dreaming of like going to the cupboards and just like eating nut butter. Like I just had this like deep craving that I couldn't satiate, even though I was eating tons of nut butters and fats like day to day. And it didn't go away until I started incorporating a bit of meat back. And it was just this feeling that when I ate it, I just felt good. Like I was struggling with gut stuff at the time. And when I ate it, after years of being a vegetarian, sometimes you hear things like, oh, well, when you bring it back, your body's not going to like digest it well. But for me, I digested it like beautifully right away. And for me, that was telling.
Hmm.
And so it was just like how it felt in my body and how I felt in my digestive system. But people notice it in different areas. Like it could be inflammation in your joints. It could be showing up in your brain, like anxiety, insomnia,
Yeah.
nervousness, like that, these sort of things. So it's hard to tell where the symptom, but if you're not feeling like good after you eat, I think that's a good sign.
Yes, that's a
Yeah.
tall tale sign that that's not something you should be eating anymore. Like,
Yeah.
for example, me, I can't have champagne anymore because it gives me heartburn. And I'm like, I just don't drink champagne. I don't drink soda because it has carbonation. Anything that has carbonation, I can't have it because it just gives me the worst heartburn. And now that I'm in my 40s, I can't drink more than 1 or 2 glasses of alcohol max because then it gives me major, major anxiety. Or I can't sleep through the night because of the sugar in the wine. So I
Yeah.
know that these things aren't things that I can personally do anymore at my age. I mean, this is why the youth is wasted on the young because we
Yeah.
don't realize just how much we're like, destroying our bodies at such a young age. Because I remember I used to drink 11 drinks in one evening or day, and it was a lot. I did a lot to my body and I rode it hard and I, I got done. But now it's like I'm older and I can't do the same things and I have to take care. I value my sleep. I value my peace. I like that earlier in the conversation you said that stress came up in almost every class that you took in nutritionist as being a nutritionist. And it's a huge factor, that stress. I always tell my clients it causes dis-ease in your body. And when you cause a dis-ease in your body, it can happen in so many different ways. For me, when I'm stressed out, I get like a twitch. I get a twitchy eye, I get heart palpitations, my neck it just feels so stiff and tight. I've even just realized now that I've gone to the dentist just last year. She was like, "Are you holding a lot of your tension in your jaw because you're breaking your own tooth?" I'm like, "Holy crap." And now I'm trying to be more aware of like, okay, relax, just relax, like breathe. And that's some of the things that we do as women. We carry a lot of weight of everything that is going on in our family and our household. Like, and some of us are, single moms out there, and we carry a lot of stress and anxiety and weight. And it's like, how can we alleviate some of that stress?
Yeah. Such a good question. And even one of the things that I just try to do for myself and I recommend for clients as well is just taking moments through the day to just notice like how are you being right now? Are you clenching your jaw? Are your shoulders up tight? Are you breathing? Right? These little moments to check in with ourselves because I think we get in the habit of sometimes it's easy to bookend little like wellness things at the beginning and end of our day.
Mm-hmm.
It's not always easy to do, but those are the places we kind of logically think to add them in. But the middle of the day is a great place to just check in and just see like, how am I operating? Am I like really like working anxiously? Am I, like I said, are you clenching your jaw and just like noticing how you're carrying yourself and how you're doing things? That can be really telling because it can be a reflection of how you're doing a lot throughout the day
Yeah.
and a little bit of encouragement to check in more often just to like force ourselves to be mindful and aware so that we can take little measures that help us relax and release some of what we're carrying.
Yes. So tell us a
Yeah.
little bit about how you started the Happy Hormone Club and how can anyone join? Is it like a subscription based group or how do we join this Happy Hormone Club?
Yeah, so the Happy Hormone Club, it's an amazing collection of different practitioners who are all kind of coming together, specializing in different things for stress and hormones. And my partner Angela, she's really great at like the energetics and the lifestyle and the mindset stuff. And then I come in with more of the nutrition and physical stuff. And we've got a great team of doctors that we work with and accountability coaches just to help people really change their lives. Um, when it starts with habits, right? So
Mhm.
it's just really transforming our lives so that you can thrive, especially as your hormones are changing, as you enter perimenopause, get into menopause. Stress is a huge, huge connector there. And if you're not managing your stress well, that's where you can see a lot of the symptoms show up a lot more aggressively or a lot more exacerbated during those times. So having the tools to just regulate and support our nervous systems is so, so essential. And so within the Happy Hormone Club, we offer private coaching, and we also have group memberships that you can
Mm.
join, and people can just come and get support in different capacities. And it's just a beautiful place to just work on our stress and work on healing some stuff on all the different areas and all the different layers.
Yeah, because the body is not just the body. It's like it's everything. It's the mind, body, and spirit. And I think now
Mhm.
we're starting to view our bodies in that way, that everything is connected and that you can't just fix the outside problem. You have to fix the inside problem, and it's all connected. And if we're not helping our mindset and we're not helping our spirit, and then we're not helping our body. And so it all needs to be in alignment. So tell us a little bit more about your Eat for Energy cookbook, because I'm excited to hear about this. I really need new new recipes. I feel like I'm stuck in the same recipes, and I'm like, how can I make this more, you know, I don't know. I feel stuck in a loop with my recipes, and sometimes I'm looking for new recipes, but then I get worried that it's not going to come out right because I've never cooked with certain ingredients, you know?
Yeah, yeah. And so when I created the recipe book, it was after I had recovered from stage 3 adrenal fatigue and burnout. So I wanted to share some of the recipes and meals that I put together during that time to really support and nourish my hormones and my gut and my blood sugar. So it really kind of dabbles on all those things, the blood sugar, hormones, gut health. And I try to, I'm not a fancy chef by any means. I call myself like a simple home cook. So it's stuff that you can kind of just throw together and hopefully just get some favorites from that become part of the repertoire that
Yeah.
you cook for yourself or make for your family, whether it's how to make a balanced smoothie or how to, make a nice balanced salad that actually satiates you, or just like different easy breakfasts and snacks sort of thing.
Oh, I definitely want to pick it up because I need new recipes in my repertoire. Let's talk about a little bit about your journey when you were trying to figure out what was wrong with you. Because I feel like I watched a lot of stuff. Do you know who the medical medium is?
Yeah.
Oh, so I got all of his books because I was trying to help a client figure out her depression and her sadness and her fatigue. And because I'm a spiritual mentor and life coach. And so I'm like giving her all the regular things that I give my clients. And I realized that none of that was working. And so then there was something that about the medical medium where he's like, your gut is your second brain. And if your gut isn't healthy, then it's going to malfunction everything else. And so I started showing her some of the TikToks that he was sharing. I was like, you should start with a celery juice in the morning. And it really elevated her emotional change. Like she had a complete emotional transformation where she was no longer feeling lethargic and tired. And she started to pay more attention to her gut health. Now, talk about that journey and how you started to like really open up that kind of like that rabbit hole of like what's going on with my gut health.
Yeah. I mean, for me, there was so many things that make it feel like it was complicated, even though the solution was simple, if that
Hmm.
makes sense. Like,
Yeah.
because I was doing it on my own for so long, I would like kind of assess my symptoms and then based on my symptoms, assume it was one thing. And it was like, oh, it's presenting as like high androgens, or, things are looking or appearing this way symptom wise. But on paper, everything was just so suppressed, right? So
Hmm.
because everything was suppressed, of course things were just out of whack. And so I didn't need to be focusing on lowering estrogen or lowering my androgens like testosterone and DHEA. Instead, I needed to be nourishing up my reserves and really working on rebuilding and just reestablishing like just a baseline of my hormones and getting them back up in like overall, right? So like having that awareness of what was actually going on with my hormones was like a huge awakening for me.
All right. So tell us about your gut
Okay.
journey and how it was trying to figure out what was wrong. feeling lethargic and tired all the time. And what made you not go on SSRIs? Because I feel like a lot of people think, oh, well, I'm probably just super depressed and I need to go to the doctors. And that's the first prescription everybody gets is an SSRI, antidepressant or anti-anxiety medication.
Yeah. I think that like there's just so much that you can do with food that can make such an impactful difference. And so for me, it was showing up like the fatigue. I was feeling really anxious a lot of the time. And I had like a lot of jawline acne. I was like breaking out all over. It was super frustrating. And I just was feeling like even like I would go for these long runs, I just felt like I couldn't recover. Like I just didn't, and like my digestion was a hot mess too. So
Mm,
like I was bloated constantly, just like really a lot of uncomfortable, like discomfort after eating. And it didn't really matter what I ate. I basically had to like cook everything at home because I felt like I was so sensitive.
mm,
And so this was what was so profound for me is like making a couple tweaks to my diet. And one of the big ones, just like incorporating digestive enzymes and cutting a couple foods that weren't working for me out, like all the legumes that I was eating just tons of on the vegetarian diet. So like making a couple shifts and noticing like how much better I felt just opened my eyes to a whole new world of feeling better. And I realized in hindsight how low my baseline of normal actually was. Like that was my normal before, but I thought that's what it felt like just to kind of exist in this body. And then I realized it could be so much better. And that really was the spark plug for me to want to learn more about nutrition and learn how to help others this way, because I just found it was so profound in so many ways. And it wasn't just the physical side of things, like it really showed up for me not in just like not so much in low mood, but more like anxiousness and
mhm,
sleep issues. And so
mm.
I noticed when I started to make these changes, I started sleeping so much better, and that my like mental focus, less squirrely and more calm in just the way that I was throughout the day, it was really impacted. And it was a simple shift with food. And that was really big for me.
I love that you said that veganism or vegetarianism isn't meant for everyone. And I really like that because I have a friend who's constantly telling me you should go vegan, you should go to vegan. But it was like my makeup, my personality is different than hers. Like she can't eat certain things without it like inflaming her, body or having gut issues. Like I don't have the same gut issues. She can't eat certain things without her not going poop for 3 days, and I don't have the same things. And so I love the conversation that, you were eating legumes to try to get more protein into your system, but that was what was inhibiting your body from feeling better. So I think every person is different. Every body is different. And there's some people that cannot handle dairy and some people who cannot handle artificial flavors. And so it's really getting to know your body and what is good for you and doing your own research and being your own advocate. And I think it's super important that we stop trying to put everyone in boxes. And because you're this person, because you're this color, or because you're this age, or because of this, you need to do A, B, C, and D. And it's like the old diet culture where it was like everyone was just right across the board, and it doesn't work that way. And so I really like this conversation of being able to just like open up all the doors and be open to trying to like be your own scientist, basically, is what you were doing, right? Like trying things that work for you, eliminating, adding, and figuring it out for yourself.
Yeah. And I think that's 100% it. It's just like these cookie cutter plans, just they can help in certain ways and in certain capacities. But if you're really struggling and if you've been struggling with burnout or fatigue or a lot of hormonal stuff for a long time, sometimes it's just nice to figure out what's going to work for you.
Yeah.
And yeah, like it depends on where you live too, and even times of your life. Like there's been times when I have not done well with dairy at all. And then I found when I was pregnant, I just wanted to eat all the dairy. So I started incorporating it back. And it's funny, like after I had my daughter Rose, I kind of just kept it in and felt really good with it. I mean,
Mm,
I like bring in the best types of dairy that I can and like really do my best with sourcing. But I think it's just doing the best you can and just like navigating the different seasons of life and just being open to flow. Like it doesn't always have to look the same.
yes.
And that's not just with food too, right? That's just kind of like with everything in our life as we transition to different stages. So just being open to go with the flow.
What are your thoughts on fasting? Because I've heard that if you are having trouble with your gut or having trouble trying to figure out, like the best thing to do is do like a complete fast and just get everything out of your system and then start from scratch. Or is that something that you don't recommend?
And so that's a good question. And I get asked this a lot, but and I do think that there's a time and place for fasting. I mean, the science is there showing some of the benefits that can be brought forth when you fast in different types of ways. But the one thing I will caution people to just be mindful of, and it's only because I've worked with people with a lot of burnout and a lot of chronic fatigue and hormone issues for a long time, it's sometimes the people that I work with don't have the reserves to even deal with a fast, and they feel so
Mm,
awful that it's just not worth it. So it's really like tapping into like, is it an appropriate time to fast for my body? And is it what my body actually needs right now? Or does my body actually need fuel to get through the
mm,
day? And so being mindful that it doesn't have to be rigid or look maybe like it looks in the books. A lot of the studies were done on men. And so during different phases of our hormone cycle, different phases of life when we're more burnt out, it might just not work as well for us then as it would in other times of our life. So just kind of being aware of like how it's feeling in your body. But I do think
yeah.
sometimes it is nice to have a little break.
Yeah. I like that you
Yeah.
mentioned that a lot of the studies were done on men. And so that's a good thing to keep your mind open to, that when you're reading studies or when you're getting these tidbits or nutritional facts, it's like a lot of the studies were just done on men and not women. And women do have different hormonal cycles. And we do have different ways of like living. So we have a lot, like I said earlier, we have a lot more on our backs than the men. I feel like maybe the men will attack me in the comments, but I really do. I really believe that we carry a lot. We're taking care of the children, we're taking care of the household, we're taking care of our own businesses or our own careers. And it's a lot on our back in addition to taking care of our husband. So it was so great to have this conversation with you, Danielle. As we wrap up this episode, what would be your nugget of wisdom for anybody who's listening or watching on YouTube?
So I find one of the most common trends with people who come to me as they're transitioning, especially moms, caregivers in any capacity, and people who are struggling with fatigue and hormonal stuff. A lot of the times we're giving a lot of ourselves away throughout the day. And one of the common questions I like to ask is what do you do for fun during the
Mm,
like on any given day or during the week? And a lot of the times, and with no judgment, because I was totally guilty of this too, we just kind of lose what actually brings us joy, and we almost forget what those things are. And so weeks and months go by and we haven't really done those soul nourishing, joyful things in our life. So I think it's one of the best medicines is to just laugh more and schedule time for yourself to do things like see your friends, get out, do the things like journal on it too. Like, what are the things that you used to do and love? If it's dancing, painting, art, sports, just anything that you really love and brings your soul just joy. I think that's the best medicine, especially when we're feeling really like we're giving a lot of ourselves away and we're burnt out and kind of just struggling through the motions as our hormones transition. It's one of those things that can make a really big difference. And so
yes.
that would be my juicy nugget for everyone today.
Oh my gosh. I love that nugget of wisdom. Honestly, if you're listening, we are more than just a mom and a wife and more than just a sister and a daughter. We are our own person and we should love ourselves just as much as we love others. And I tell my clients, do what makes your soul sing. And sometimes we forget, like you said, what makes our soul sing, what brings us so much joy. And that's the purpose of this journey here on this planet, is to have joy in our life. So, how can my
100%.
audience find you and connect with you?
So you can find me at simplynourished.ca or Simply Nourished on Instagram. And you can find me over at the collective at the Happy Hormone Club as well. So on Instagram, it's happy.hormone.club. And it's the happy and it's happyhormoneclub.com as well. I think everything's going to be linked in the show notes. I know that's kind of a mouthful, but come find me at Simply Nourished. That's a great place to start, and you can get all the resources and more info there.
Perfect.
Thank
And
you
you
so
also
much
have
for
a
having me.
podcast, right?
Yeah, I forgot to mention the podcast. So it's the Adrenal Fatigue podcast, which is currently shifting its name to the Happy Hormone Club podcast. But it's still the same channel. So if you search the Adrenal Fatigue podcast, you'll see all the episodes there. And there's like lots of juicy wisdom with some incredible guests. If you need a great starting place, just in terms of listening, definitely check it out.
Well, thank you again for being on the podcast. Thank you again for listening to Journey of a Fearless Female. I'm your host, Paola Rosser. If you're looking for a life coach or a spiritual mentor, you can book a free discovery call with me at www.fearlessfemale.com. You can also follow me on Instagram at fearlessfemale_coach, subscribe to my YouTube channel at fearlessfemale, or find me on TikTok. I'm under at paola.rosser. And if you love this episode, make sure you hit subscribe, share it with your friends, and leave a review. I read every single review, and I truly appreciate the time you spend writing it.